Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joins us now, as well as Dustin Schutte. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well this morning. How are you?
Good. It's a perfect morning for if you're a football player and you got to start practice. This is the kind of morning. The humidity is non-existent. The temperatures are low. There's cloud cover, so it's not sun on you. Perfect day for football practice.
You know, Jim, coaches hate that, by the way.
Exactly. I said that from the player's perspective.
Yes. I don't know if it's still true, in today's era, but I can tell you that I have been at more than a few football practices in my time where coaches complained that it was too nice. The weather was too good. They wanted it to be sweltering and miserable, and so they could get the athletes sweating and force them to push themselves. I'm not sure if that's still the case now.
I don't think that's changed. I think that they just give you water now. When I was in school, why you'd ask for water is like, we don't need water. I'm not thirsty. That's what the coaches would say. I'm not thirsty. We don't need water. We're going to run till I get tired. I mean, that was the mindset. But it was the mindset without water, without all that stuff. It was funny. But yes, I think they still push them pretty hard. But now that they're aware of and kind of joking aside, the health issues, they still push them, but now they are really aware of all these things. And so the nutrition, all the hydration. I mean, when you're on a sideline, it's amazing to me. I mean, there's just tubs of Gatorade everywhere. There's protein bars. There's, everything that is needed. It's all there laid out. You just go get it. Like I said, when I was growing up, you had to ask. And I mean, just go get what you need, whatever. Stay healthy, stay comfortable.
Yeah, I remember when the 1 year I played football was the guys who really got in there hated the little squirty bottles. They all wanted to take the lid off and drink straight out of the bottle, but it was really unsanitary because it's not like we had a bottle for every kid. I do remember that. I think those hazards are gone now.
Yeah, it's fun. But today is the opening day of practice for Indiana. Other teams have started depending on when their games are. Some teams have a week 0 game, as Indiana's opening opponent does, Illinois. So there's that. We just finished up last week with Big Ten football media days, and then Big 12 media days, which was kind of comical, man. I mean, those Kliavkoff was kind of really jabbing at the Big 12, man. He was like pulling no punches.
I was covering that remotely, obviously, for the Sporting News on Friday when the Pac-12 had their media days, and George Kliavkoff gave his address about the future of the Pac-12. And it was interesting because the first, I think he spoke for about 10 minutes ish on his own. And he really didn't say a lot in that, he said the usual stuff. We're confident with, in our future and that kind of stuff. It wasn't really profound. And I was sitting there not really knowing exactly what I was going to write. And then the question and answer started, and the people who were in the room in LA, one of them, I think it was Stuart Mandel from The Athletic, asked about the Big 12, and Kliavkoff gave an answer, and he went on, and then he said about expansion. He said, we haven't decided if we're going to go shopping there. Yeah. And and he didn't say it as emphatically as that, so that you heard the there quickly, clearly. And I said, did he say that? Like, wait, does he really say? Like, did he mean the Big 12? Is that what he's saying? And so I, being the responsible journalist that I am, immediately, I mean, I'm talking about instantly, grabbed my phone and started typing out an email to a media representative for the Pac-12. And by the time I'd sent it and come back into the room where it was, I was recording whatever Kliavkoff was saying, by the time I came back in the room, he more or less was ready to say, yeah, damn right, that's what I was talking about. He doubled down in an answer about 5 minutes later where he really took off on the Big 12 and talked about how he's essentially sick and tired of various elements around the Big 12, whether it's the media that cover the league or the league, the Big 12 members sort of leaking stuff out, or maybe the league office even. He never really specified exactly who he meant, but he said every corner of the Big 12 is essentially trying to destabilize his league, and he wasn't happy about it. And one of the things that was interesting that he said, and I think that a lot of people missed it, was he said, if I had basically he said, he didn't say it in these words, if I had their crappy TV value, I'd be trying to destabilize me too. I mean, is essentially what he said in slightly more political terms. That's what he said. And that's one of the things that the people who cover college athletics are missing in this whole reaction to Southern California and UCLA joining the Big Ten, is that no one is going to move to any league until you put some numbers on paper and put it in front of them and say, okay, this is what you'll make if you join us. Like if any of us were offered a job, we're not saying, oh yeah, I feel like I'd like to live in Santa Barbara. I mean, okay, what? You're going to pay me $25,000 a year? I can't afford to live in Santa Barbara.
Right.
So no one's moving until they have numbers, and no one has numbers right now. Even the Big Ten's deal is not final, but we know that the numbers that were put in front of USC and UCLA were significant enough to say, yeah, we're doing it. But
yeah, that's the question I was wondering: is how does the Big Ten come to a Big Ten media rights deal with the questions looming?
Yeah, those numbers were already in place. I mean, they're close. They were close as it was, based on all the reporting from the various, from Front Office Sports, from Sports Business Journal. They were close as it was. And all the while,
AT, how are you?
All the while they're waiting for to get Southern Cal and UCLA on board.
When Anthony Thompson yells at you, you have to respond back.
Of course. When they get when they get it official, that's when the Pac-12 can say, okay, that's what the number is. We're worth X amount of that. Now they're not worth whatever that number is. They're not worth it, and they know that. But they can do some math on, okay, if that's the market, we get half their audience, so we're worth half the money or whatever it might be. And at that point, they can say to their members, here's where we are. You're not getting a better deal anywhere else unless those two leagues call you. And that's a simple truth. And right now, the only thing the Pac-12 can do is defend itself against Big 12 incursion. They can't compete with the Big Ten. If the Big Ten wants you, you either want to be a part of it and want the money, or the money isn't that important to you and you don't want to travel that much, etc. Whatever your decision is, if you're Stanford, Oregon, Washington, whatever, I can't predict. I can suggest that I think that if the money's there, they'll take it based on everything that everybody else has done. But you can't be sure until it happens. But you can't expect that the Pac-12 is going to do its best to stay ahead of the Big 12, because that's where their real competition lies.
Dustin, I thought that there was a great possibility that the Pac-12 and the Big 12 would possibly merge. But boy, you can tell that's out the window, it seems like. But of course, nothing is ever out the window. But right now, it looks like it's out the window. But I mean, as far from a strength standpoint, I'm like, wow, they almost kind of have to merge, because there's not much that they could add that would be significant, because the significant pieces are already taken.
Well, the merging, I know the Big 12 wasn't an original member of this, but the merging was already, I still don't know what the point of the whole alliance was. I mean, there was a lot of backstabbing that happened. It felt like a show of Survivor. Like, right, you create this alliance, and then within 2 weeks, somebody's already done their own thing and stabbed somebody in the back. Is the best comparison I had. I wanted to ask Mike, because we got answers, I think, from Kevin Warren and from from Greg Sankey of the SEC. Obviously, both commissioners like their new additions, Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, USC, UCLA to the Big Ten. I think Greg Sankey said we're already a super conference. I think that that's something he already said, but I look at this obviously with football and the way they dominate the sport, but the Big Ten seems to continually dominate the media rights deals. They continue to be on top in terms of the payouts they're giving each school. Who do you think who is the better super conference? I mean, to me, the Big Ten is in a better situation monetarily. Like, is USC and UCLA, those two additions, better than Texas and Oklahoma, or does the SEC win that battle?
I think that what happened was they both got who fits them best.
Okay.
I think that geographically, Texas and Oklahoma fit the SEC, both in terms of having Texas A&M right there. It's not that far from Oklahoma to Arkansas, all that sort of stuff. So, and I think that SC and UCLA fit the Big Ten in terms of that academic model that is very important to Big Ten membership, to the Big Ten presidents, who are still the most important figures in the operation, in the overall operation of the league. I mean, they have a big say, and Kevin Warren did a fantastic job of negotiating to get USC and UCLA to get members who fit their profile as well as they do, as well as expanding you now from, you got you're basically in the New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Philadelphia, and now the LA market. So I mean, that's really impressive to be in all those places. So I think he's done. I think they've both gotten what they need to get. And that's one of the reasons why I reject the idea that it's automatically heading to 20-team super conferences, which was the immediate reaction to this move by a lot of different people in the media. Nothing has happened in any college change conference-wise that hasn't led to one thing, Dustin and Jim, and that's more money. Everything that's been done has been, that'll get us more money, let's do that. And getting, there's nobody out there right now other than Notre Dame that says more money for the Big Ten. There's nothing out there that says more money for the SEC. You can get bigger, but then you're just getting your pie and you're taking, the pieces still be big because it's a big pie, but they'll be a little smaller than they were yesterday. So there's nobody out there that changes your dynamic in that respect. So I think the next pies are the next moves are changing the way content is distributed. I think that's a big step for both leagues, for all of college sports. I think other ways that you can monetize. I think those are the next steps, rather than just, if we get Clemson, we'll have another good football team, so that'll make our league better. It'll make your league better. Clemson's really good, but it's not a huge market. They certainly have a significant following, but doesn't match up with Alabama's or Georgia's or Florida's. So what are you doing? You're, again, slicing that pie. That big piece of pie gets a little bit smaller.
Right.
And then we talk about how basketball programs that are basketball driven, how it affects them differently than it does programs that are football driven, because that's the engine that usually drives the train.
Yeah, I mean, I think basketball I think we've learned over the last 15 years or so, maybe 20, going back to the ACC expansion in 2003. I think we've learned that basketball is a passenger in this, and that the main thing in all of this is to not impact March. That basketball can survive different permutations. I mean, Big Ten basketball reached its, in terms of regular season success and earning NCAA tournament bids, reached its greatest heights with the expansion to include Maryland, Rutgers, and Nebraska. I mean, 9 bids 2 years in a row, all happened after you added those 3 programs. So I don't think that basketball I think it needs to be nimble, but it needs to form a wall around March. Okay, you guys make moves, whatever, we'll play. but don't touch March because one, that's what we're based on in terms of our economic value, and two, you can't recreate this magic by grabbing, by making a super conference basketball tournament. You'll fail. You're not going to recreate March by doing that and getting a bigger piece of a smaller pie.